Hello there, and welcome to another installment of Risk Unfiltered. And it's around risk, faith, finance, and insurance. A real interesting combination there. And to help us, or to take us through this conversation is one Mrs. Cherisse Haynes. Cherisse Haynes, welcome to Risk Unfiltered.
Thank you. Hi, it's a pleasure.
Okay, so as we oftentimes speak, this is it's not scripted; it's a conversation,
Yeah.
and so we will go wherever the conversation goes.
Okay.
If I tend to go off target at times, it's probably intentional, yeah, because it is Risk Unfiltered. So that's the denominator across all the conversations, all the topics. Yes. So why don't you tell the folks who actually is Mrs. Cherisse Haynes and from whence she came?
All right. So again, my name is Cherisse Haynes, and I am a financial advisor. You know, this is literally a new journey for me. Somehow, it seems as though my road ahead seems pretty much bright. Thank God for that. But before I even became an advisor, I was a practicing businesswoman. Now, I still am a businesswoman. However, I am no longer in the industry that I was in before, which is the beauty industry. I previously owned 5 locations above Trinidad and Tobago, and I walked away from it all to become a financial advisor because I believe that persons can do exactly what I did in a short span of time.
Interesting. So I guess the fact that you were, and you are still in the beauty industry is so actually when I first thought about theming this conversation, the word fashion came in, yeah, because you are, excuse the term, it's not meant in a pejorative or derogatory, you are kind of like a fashionista, right?
Okay.
You present yourself, yeah. I know quite a bit of financial advisors, and yeah. So anyways, so that is what I said, wait a second. And then I would look at some of your posts, and there's always a sort of like faith-based conversation you are having. Yeah. So before we get into the risk and finance space, from whence that came, and how deep is it, that faith that drives you, that you articulate so well, and you align with your business or your finance suggestions, even quoting scriptures that are, you know, that are aligned with your recommendations?
Okay, so it's pretty much very deep, very, very much so. I live by the word of God.
Okay.
You know, over the years, I've tried things on my own. I've tried figuring it out by myself, and it didn't work. And I can safely say it was only when that point came when I gave my life to Christ and I got baptized and I really dedicated a period, like almost a whole year. I just got lost in the Bible and allowed it to drown me. It's only after everything changed, like my business, my finances, my relationship, my goals started to become accomplished. Everything changed for real.
Right,
and
okay.
In realizing that, it's like discovering a really great restaurant, and you just cannot stay quiet about it and keep it to yourself. You want to tell all your friends because you realize it's the best restaurant ever. So this is me realizing I found a solution to life and how to conquer. So why would I stay quiet? Right? I believe that I'm supposed to help the persons around me. I believe that it's such great news that I have to just tell someone. And if it is, I have a platform, that being social media, I found it to be the easiest way so that I can tell people.
Right.
Simply put.
So how do you then delineate? So you go before a client, and I'm going to be pretty presumptuous here. So you don't go into a meeting with a client necessarily with the faith on your shoulder to speak about, and I guess you're Christian, yeah? So, and so I'm sure you have clients who are of other religious persuasions, yeah? So how do you do you bring that into your I know you carry it with you, obviously, you know, it's not separated, but it's not like you go doing Bible study and selling insurance products at the same time, right? Well, I don't know.
I will not say that I quote scripture while I'm selling a policy unless there's a window of opportunity and it really comes in my head based on the conversation. Of course, if it's at the tip of my tongue and it's easy to come out, it comes out. But I'm not going to go with intentions of coming to preach to you. No.
All right.
I'm going based on the principles that I have gathered when I read. So I can advise you based on biblical principles.
Okay.
Right?
Have you ever ran into any issues with this?
Never.
Okay. So how then, and again, so remember I said to you, the conversation will go along the lines of the answers and questions, yeah? So do you do any sort of due diligence before you meet with a client because of your faith, i.e. you being Christian, but let's say you're meeting with a brother or sister of another faith? Do you try and find out what that faith may be, so you don't what's the word I'm looking for, you don't speak of something that may be contrary to their faith or their belief in whatever religion that they may be?
Well, first of all,
if not, then that's a conversation we'll have. But go ahead.
No, I could definitely answer this.
Yeah.
First of all, I truly, solely, and wholly believe, so therefore I'm not ashamed and I'm not trying to tiptoe around anyone. That's one. Two, I have never confronted anyone to become my client. 95% of my clients has come from social media, and therefore you reach out to me.
Okay.
So you already know what I come with. You already know whose I am, who I belong to, what I stand for.
Okay.
So if you reach out to me, it's because you want to hear from me from what you've seen on my page.
Okay. Good. And so the reason I asked that question, risk management begins with the individual, right? Mm-hmm. So I say to folks, just as the organization you work with will have a disaster preparedness or a business continuity plan, you need to have one for yourself. Right. Yeah. And so when we're talking about due diligence, I have a methodology that I use when engaging folks. Even in your case, I try to find out as much as possible from them before I engage them. Right. Yeah. For two reasons. One is that it makes a conversation, if it's podcast or not, a much more intelligent conversation.
Yes.
And then I'll know from where this person comes from, right? And then sometimes based on my due diligence, I'll say, heck no, I'm not having a conversation with this person. Yeah. So that's where where you in managing your personal risk space would tend to, if it were not for the fact that folks are coming to you, if you are now pushing or pulling instead of being pushed, then you probably would have to do that type of due diligence. But we'll come back to that. All right. So, well, let's ask the question another way. Mm-hmm. Have your faith ever pulled you away from a potential client?
Or
there are times you have to say, I need to, this may sound like an unfair question. There are times, given who is in front of you and the questions they may be asking, because of your faith, you have to say, this is not for me. Talk to somebody else.
No, never.
Never.
I trust God to send me my clients.
Okay, all right.
So my answer is no.
Okay.
I believe that if that should happen one day, it is a test, and therefore is to see if I pass the test or not, based on what I believe and what he expects of me. What I would say is this. I had a client said to me once, now this is a very mature individual, a very successful lady, said, I don't know why, I have an agent for many years, but something told me to just reach out to you. I do not like the attitude of my other agents. So can you please help me? And I was like, sure, no problem. I'll be happy to serve. You know, we set up the meeting and everything. And in front of me, she said, I don't know why, I just really like you, but I realize you're so much into the God. I'm not really into that, but I just really into you.
Okay.
And I was like, maybe it's because you're into God for real. And you, what you think is God, that's what you're not into.
Right.
Maybe it's the package, it's the religion, it's the whole bondage of what man's expectation of what religion and faith should be is what you don't like. It may not necessarily be God.
Okay.
That's what I would really say.
How is it? So you work for a major insurance company in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
So let's talk risk and insurance, and then bring faith into that a little bit. So you are in a space. You are in a risk management space, but you are in the risk mitigation space, because as you know, insurance is a way to mitigate risk, right? It's one of the ways that is. Given what COVID is doing, has done, is doing, will continue to do, how, based on the conversations you would have had, i.e. the products, the conversations you would have had during COVID, because there's no post-COVID yet, right? There won't be post-COVID for a while. Yeah. Have those conversations with clients changed prior to COVID? So the clients that would have come to you and asking for policies and stuff prior to COVID, say early 2020, 2029, how have that conversation changed since March of 2020 when COVID hit Trinidad and Tobago?
So I get two types of conversations. Mm-hmm. First type is I got laid off, I got retrenched, I have less income, I can't afford, not yet. That's one. The second type is, you see, the reality is not everyone is suffering.
True.
Everyone really is affected by this pandemic. Some persons
affected equally.
Have skyrocketed, right? That's the reality. So I have now, as I said, I don't really reach out to persons. So I would not say that I have targeted persons who will be more successful, but I've definitely changed my marketing towards the essentials. Right.
Of course, yeah.
So that's that. However, I found it to be somewhat positive in regards to my mission in this industry, which is to promote more business owners, I'm not bashing the workforce, but however, use your employment as a form of a stepping stone into the entrepreneurial aspect of life, right? And I found that the conversations are very much empowering, exciting. I feel as though I'm giving birth to new hope in persons that was dormant before. And I love it. So it's positive. And even if the conversation has been negative, again, I will probe you to think, what are you passionate about? How can you monetize your passion? Don't go looking for a loan. Use your resources. We are called to be resourceful, not look for resources and be in debt and expense. Think about something. All you have to do is flip $1 and turn it into 2 and then into 10. You don't need to have 100,000 to then try and flip. That's small. So that's how the conversation has been going, because I don't just try to sell you a policy.
So let's stay with the more those clients you may have or do have that, because in a crisis, a terrible thing is a good opportunity. Crises presents opportunities. So like you were saying, there are folks in the business space that became more wealthy because of COVID. And I'm sure the same applies to folks in Trinidad and Tobago. But even so the folks that weren't as impacted by COVID as some of the other clients, right, have their conversation from a, let's say, from a continuation of business, so from a protection of me and my family. So they may not have had a policy before, but because of COVID, they start thinking more like, what if?
Yes.
Have you had some of those conversations?
For sure, most definitely.
Right. So COVID was a plus.
Yes, I would say that. I would definitely say that. In this business, I believe that. It's just, even though COVID can definitely wake you up into realizing that you have to now protect your family, your income and all these things, some persons do not have, and then they understand the importance of it, but they don't have they don't have enough, or they're not prioritizing it enough to then put payment towards it.
Okay. So you mentioned entrepreneurs earlier on. So one of my well, I don't want to call it a critique, but one of the problems I have with the entrepreneurial space in Trinidad and Tobago is, they talk about having these incubators to help folks, SMEs and others build up, but they teach them they figure once they teach them how to market their product, a bit of finance, that's about it, right? How to sell. And so there's no true, both literally and figuratively, risk management training for these entrepreneurs. And part of risk management is insurance products. So these are some things you ought to consider in going into business to protect you and your assets. Yeah. Do you find, so how do you then, well, let's have a future proofing conversation. What do you think needs to be done to get those SMEs, those future entrepreneurs, those budding entrepreneurs, much more risk educated? From your vantage point, what needs to happen?
Most definitely. Primary school level education needed to implement 1, risk management, 2, business management, 3, money management, right? I believe that, I remember, let me share this with you. I remember I was about 12 or 13 years old at my swimming club, and a little girl was crying that she didn't complete her homework, and the mother was like, what happened to you? What homework you didn't do? The little girl was about 6 years old, and she attended Maple Leaf at the time, and she was like, I didn't finish my entrepreneur homework. And I was like, what is entrepreneurship? What is that? I went from asking, what is that? Those days I'm in Holy Name, and I did not know what is entrepreneurship, right? Something is very wrong with that.
Damn, Skippy. Yeah. So one of the, and it's kind of instructive that you mentioned those things, because part of the mandate of the Caribbean Risk Management Academy, and we have already started, actually, we have reached out to certain schools, is to offer free fundamentals of risk management to young adults, starting with the schools across the Caribbean. Right. So we did our first Caribbean conference last November, and so the mandate from there to now and continuing will be to push that agenda. Yeah. So it's to that point. And so let me speak to that. So I am in the US, and I have colleagues in the UK and in Ireland, in London and in Ireland. And it's because of COVID, some of the things we're talking about is being introduced from elementary school up. Yeah. Correct. And and I have said publicly and privately that the curriculum of these schools, and to your point, needs to be, we need to have more, not book educated, we need to have more risk intelligent, more lateral thinking. I don't even want to use critical thinking. We need to raise the IQ of our students from primary to secondary to tertiary, and speak to those things. So let me help you with that example. About 6-7 years ago, so I have a program that Arthur Lockjack offers, a professional certificate in enterprise risk management. And one of my colleagues there about 5 years ago asked if I would consider doing some special training for some 9 to 12-year-olds in South. And if I can develop a value of money workshop for them. You see the age group, 9 to 12. Yeah. But so I have a mantra that says, if you can't think it, you can't act on it. Right. The leaders, be it political or academic or even at the institutional level, I don't think they are they're anywhere near the need to be informing, instructing, educating either themselves and both themselves and the student population in the conversations that we are having or will have.
Right.
And it's kind of sad commentary. So that's why I go back to the question. How do you then, in your space, with whatever resources you have intellectually, help entrepreneurs? What kind of conversations do you have, either existing or budding entrepreneurs?
With regards to insurance?
To managing their business. So that includes be it finance, insurance, risk, whatever you can contribute. Yeah.
What I do when I realize that you have a business, an existing business, and it's generating income, I ask you, what's your income? Because remember, I want to know your expenses and I want to know what's your income so that I can then subtract the two to see what it is we remain with to then know how I can help you, right?
Okay.
So if it is you have a JOB and you receive X amount of money and you have a business, I ask you how much money you make from your business. And when you answer me, I'm asking you, is that profits or is that sales? Right. And sometimes just from that question alone, I get a hesitation.
Because they don't know the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then when some answer, I'll ask you, so what do you do with it? What do you do with the profit? And most times they would say they spend it. But if you are trying to grow a business, you cannot be spending your profits. You can't be spending that. No. How do you mean you're spending it? I'm not okay, fine. What are you doing with it? What are you buying with it? You're buying groceries. You're paying your house light bill. So I'm like, no. All right. Let's have a little small, simple plan, right? Simple. What I tell them to do, just get a notebook, draw a column, draw one line. You have two columns, in, out. Mm-hmm. Every time money comes into your hand, just write it down on the date. Every time money leaves your hand to spend for your business, write it down and write a date. Do not spend any money from that income from your business on personal, not yet, not now. Mm-hmm. That's one way. Next way, I tell them split up every single payment that comes into their hands, split it up in 5 different places. For me personally, it would have been tithes first, right? But not everybody would believe in that. Right. So I give room for them to say, like, you know what about my tithes? Well, then I know I could talk to you like that. So tithes, savings, investments, expenses. However, we're splitting it up. Mm-hmm. You're committing to that. So if you get $100, you know you're splitting up that $100. If you get $1,000, you're splitting up that $1,000. At the end of the day, you will never walk away from your business. Even if it was unsuccessful, you will not be broke. It was definitely worth your while. That's the next way. The last way that I advise them to is every week after the in and out, every week tally it up. Do not touch it. At the end of the month, see what you have, subtract the two, and pay yourself a small income. Mm-hmm. Practice that at least for about 2-3 months. Come back to me. I can align you with an accountant who can then read your book with just your in and out and make it make sense. I am not going to do that for you. I'm busy, right?
Right. And how receptive are they to that sort of guidance? Yeah, well, that education.
Hungry for it, hungry.
Right. So I'll ask you, and this is a rhetorical question. Why aren't they being exposed to that? All these boot camps or SMEs, incubators they speak about. Why aren't that granularity of educating these guys not being taught? Why is that not part of that conversation?
Because they're not business people. Yeah, it does.
So how do we fix it? If you have to recommend something to the Minister of Trade and Industry, the Minister of Education, seeing what you are seeing and what you've been exposed to, how do you then educate the existing entrepreneurial businesses? Well, let's work with them, because that's we'll deal with the kids on the back end. But how do you then have a more financially intelligent entrepreneur business owners in Trinidad and Tobago? What ought to be done? So they don't start opening a business because in the US here, I think the stats are about 58% of all small businesses fail within 6 months because everyone feels they could just open up a business, to your point, make the money, spend it, and then continue. And that never, especially now, what COVID has done. So it's kind of interesting because when we talk about, and we'll come to that in a second, I think I read somewhere that close to 6,000 businesses may not open in one of your newspapers there.
Yeah.
So how do you then prevent that? So this is a question for Mrs. Cherisse Haynes. What can you do as a much more financially intelligent person than probably most of your clients? How can you help prevent that level of failure going forward?
Well, besides the fact that we just spoke about implementing money management and stuff in primary school level, I would say, instead of coming up with these initiatives as scapegoats and means of swindling money for personal gain, besides that, I would say to have initiatives with successful business owners who you can create alignment with groups of individuals and you give them compensation based on results. That's what I would say.
Interesting.
You know, I had a YouTube channel where I spoke about God. That's what I love. But now, I mean, I've stopped. But now, what God has been telling me to do is literally just go on YouTube, create videos from scratch, and teach business.
Yeah.
So like a regular principles of business, regular business management and marketing. Let me eat it up and say it in the simplest words, not to impress, but to understand. The lowest level all the way up.
Yeah, and so it's
I want to do personally.
Well, yeah, you know what? So I would just respectfully suggest maybe sharing your skill sets and your experience with the folks on the outside, because here's the difference. Much of what, and I'll this is not like, you know, tooting our own here, but much of what we do. So I have competitors in this space, but the difference between I oftentimes say between me and my competitors is that most of what I share, I lived. I didn't learn. And that's the reason I could develop workshops and a successful risk management program that Atalock Jack runs, right? And of course, you incorporate international standards and best practices. But I tell folks, it matters not what letters you have behind your name, or, you know, lean in with skill sets, because experience by itself could be a risk. Because if you had 20 years bad experiences and you totally messed up and you want to go and share that, but you could have bad experiences but good skill sets. Because I know some very skillful folks in the technical space, but I wouldn't take any advice from them by way of by way of their experience. But you can share your skill set, so you can train someone based on your skill set. So I'm an advocate for that. Lean in with your skill sets first. Experience does count, but I don't, and most of the folks who work with me or for me, I don't want to hear about your past experience per se. You know? And so that's another conversation. So in doing that, and I think that's a great idea, but share your experiences with them, because I don't believe, Googling something is fine for information, not necessarily for instructions, unless you want to fix it.
Correct.
Right? And that doesn't help with your personal finance, because no one cap fits all. And you know that, because you could give the same advice to two individuals and they'll treat with advice differently. One will succeed and one will not.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. So now let's tie in insurance specifically with risk, and then as a denominator, your faith. Yeah. And so I was thinking about this. I was having another Zoom meeting and something came up, and it was around this email I sent. So the question I asked the folks on my mailing list, why was the Taliban successful against the U.S. forces? And I identify certain points: attitudes, behavior, appetite, personal beliefs, something. And so I got a bunch of responses, but the one response I did not get, the Afghan fighters were fighting not necessarily for the country, but for the money that they were being paid.
Yeah.
The Taliban was fighting on faith and that daily religion. Yeah. And so I'm actually giving the answer to that I haven't gotten so far. I got a lot of stuff, but that was one of the factors.
That would have been my answer.
I'm sorry?
That would have been my answer.
Yeah, because the Afghan soldiers just gave up. They just gave up. Some saying they weren't getting paid on time, and that, but it's not just for the US. This has been going on for many years with different armies. But we wouldn't get there. So faith and beliefs are driving. It is sometimes a key component to decision making. So let's tie those two words back into your space: decision making. One of the, if not the main, how should I put this? Risk management is critically important because it allows for better decision making.
Yes.
It does. Okay. But if you are a business person, and as you are a business person, and you have a strong faith and you're guided by that faith, are there times when they diverge, that your faith or your belief tells you one thing, but your business sense tells you something else?
Yes.
And okay, all right. So what do you do then at that point?
Right. I love this question. Years ago, I wanted to get a section in a band, and every door was opening for that to happen. I have a great following with women. I know my section would have sell out. It was a very highly sought after carnival band. Yes, I did my design. I had everybody in place to get it done. I read in the word, and it's going against everything the word says. So again, I'm at a crossroad.
Right.
I know the money would have come. I know it, right? It made sense business-wise in every way. I even tried to say, well, okay, this is my culture,
Right.
I'm a Trini, so nothing is wrong with this. That's what I'm trying to convince myself. No. So in the end, I chose God. I chose what God's teaching said, and it was wrong for me. I believe that it was really a wrong decision, even though it would have been profitable. So I walked away from it.
Okay.
And not too long after, breakthrough came in a different way.
Right.
That was not contradicting to him.
Okay, so then that leads me to this question that I would not have asked if this was scripted. So is it that you are, I wouldn't use the word anti-carnival per se. So so profiteering, let's frame it like this. So making a profit off of carnival events, is that against what your personal beliefs or faith teaches you?
Carnival is culture. What carnival is today, I don't think that is culture. What it has evolved now to be now, no. I am not going to make $1 off of sinful activities. I am not going to make $1 off of nude behavior, off of nakedness. I am not doing that.
Okay. So that's a dichotomy of sorts, because you're living amongst, I would say the majority of the population is into that. Yeah. So would you then, and I'm going to put you on the spot because this is Risk Unfiltered.
All right.
Would you then, any of your clients, and because it's same thing with you not doing it, are any of your clients band leaders, masqueraders?
For sure. Before insurance, I owned spas.
So would you take a client? Would you take a band leader as a client who makes the kind of mask?
Of course, and as my opportunity now, once the opportunity arises, then share with them love, not judgment.
Okay.
right? And when you build relationship with persons, you become more comfortable in sharing.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They become more receptive. But when
Okay.
you now meet someone, you can't do that.
Oh, okay. And it's not like, so you don't try to change their thinking per se. You could speak the word and leave it up to them, but you don't say, okay, but you do have clients who are in a space that you yourself would not go into.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I make myself available.
Okay.
And that's where in my personal time I pray. I lift them up in prayer. And if it is what God wants, he can change their heart and he can make them reach back out to me. But I'm not God. I just do what I believe.
Okay. So well, let's stay with that for a second. So earlier I called you a fashionista. Mm-hmm. that you ascribe it to. So what? Let me step back for a second. What do you do for? How does Cherisse relax or do for fun or as a hobby that doesn't involve financial products or preaching the word? What do you do for you? Unless that is, of course, your fun thing.
No, it isn't. Okay. I love to work out. I love to drink wine and play music. I love to paint. I'm into arts. Yeah, and I love to read books. That's pretty much it.
I have some pretty good books that I'll recommend for you to use. Nice. Okay, so so let's take what you do to the next level. Given the world we are living in now, which is very much more complex, more volatile, a lot of not good things will continue to happen. And if we think about climate change, we think about our neighbors in Haiti, the kind of flooding that Trinidad and Tobago is experiencing. How can you help prepare the constituents of Trinidad and Tobago to manage those future risks? Is it by way of new product offerings that your company is building? Because obviously you can't sell the same type of, products 5 years ago, this year going forward. So are you guys redesigning products or building new ones? Are you helping them build that, or you just take what they have and go to your clients and sell?
For the past few weeks, I have been seeing new implementations as to our product list. Okay. And I believe it is the agents, owners, to indulge themselves in a way that they understand the product inside out to then be able to create a cocktail that can be customized for their clients' needs.
Right.
But as much as times are changing, yes, every client is different. Everybody has different goals, right? So right. I truly, honestly believe, as much as you're saying, classical policies, you can't just go along selling the same thing. I will definitely say the risks don't really change. It becomes greater.
Right.
That is what I believe. Is the same things going to hamper your goal? Maybe.
Yeah, you're right, but in a much quicker way, probably a more complex way. And so think death, think a life insurance policy. You are going to die.
Yeah.
But given the world as we know it, you may die a lot sooner than you may be thinking, that because life expectancy, especially now given COVID, 4 years for men as calculated right now, right?
Yes.
So yeah, you're right in that regard. Things are still, you still want to some investment products, but the type of investment. So do you also offer investment products?
I do, but I don't necessarily think that investments combat risk in a big way unless you're speaking about inflation. Okay. I would more say the insurance policies.
Like what? What type of insurance policy? So if I am considering being one of your clients, and I say to you, and let's make certain assumptions, I'm pretty well off, but I need some policies in Trinidad to help protect me and my business. What? And so my financial situation, and so we're working with certain up, and we're speaking hypothetically and theoretically. Yeah. So given the environment that we are in now, as I said, consider these things, much more dynamic, much more volatile, a lot of uncertainty, even with businesses, because, you know, and so one of the things I say to folks, and I'm going over the place here for now, is that, so I was reading that BP is going to sell their thing to some other entity, British Petroleum. No one necessarily knows. The folks who they're merging with knows, but not Trinidad and Tobago currently don't know what will happen 4 or 5 years from now with that. And then you have, you know, oil and gas is a diminishing return kind of product. So how do you help protect? How much preparation does Cherisse do? I'll use some words that my folks know. Horizon scanning, which is looking so far outside of Trinidad and Tobago, because when we talk about external risks, the things that the negative or even good things that are happening outside will impact Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
So how much of an outward-looking assessment do you do to be able to guide your? So I'll call it horizon scanning. You look what's happening in the world, and not just, you cannot be singularly focused on just what is happening within Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad and Tobago is not self-determining. Even in its most the number one GDP product they have in oil and gas, because it depends on what it's selling for. So do you take those things in consideration when you're meeting with clients? Do you do that deep dive?
First thing I need to know to then be able to reach to there is to find out what you ultimately want. Okay. You must, they can't even measure risk unless you have an objective. You have what you want to do.
So and you will notice. So the definition of risk that I aligned my work with is an ISO standard called the effect of uncertainty on achieving objective.
Right.
Right. So basically, it begs the question. You know, you're opening a business. You know, you want it profitable in 2.5 years. What do you not know that could impact on you achieving that business?
Right. So the reason why I said it's not going to change, it just gets more intense or it lessens, is the same things over and over is what is going to affect you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So, okay, you tell me you want to be rich, you want a house, you want a car, you want whatever you want. What is going to hamper you from getting to that point? Right. Well, you could die.
That's for damn sure.
Right?
No, you're right. Yeah. I was going to say you will die, but you could die before you have to go.
Right. You can die naturally, but that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your goals. Right. What could happen to stop you from achieving that goal? You can die. How? I don't know. It's not even that I'm asking. You can die. Right. That's one. Two, you can get sick. Yeah. If you get sick, you're not studying your goal anymore. You're studying Dr. Bills. You're studying to live. Right? So again, it could be real sickness in a crazy way where your skin falling off, whatever. Or you can be like subtly sick where you have cancer or something and you're not seeing it on the outside, but you're suffering inside. The point is it's expensive. So therefore, your funds that you really want to be pumping into your business and your goals, no, it's not going to happen anymore. What else could happen? You can become disabled. How are you going to execute all your big plans and you can't even move? Not even your plans. How are you even going to eat? How are you even going to just basic needs? How are you going to pay a light bill? Right? So it's the same, to me, it is the same hazards really. And on top of that, oh gosh, you can get old. You can be still chasing the same dream. It never happened. And you're still thinking, don't worry, one day I will start to save when I finally make my big lump sum. No. So there's 4 main hazards really. 4 main risks. That could affect you from achieving your goals. And that is what I will tell them, listen, ultimately, I want to help you achieve your goal. I want you to go on the next level. I want to grow your money, everything, but we need to do it smart. We need to at least protect you from what could happen to stop all those plans. Right. Therefore, you get a core. I will build something that is literally strengthens your core, strengthens your foundation so you can start to build now. However long that takes, at least you know if something happens, you're fine. You don't hit rock bottom and start from scratch because that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you.
So when you have these types of you sell well. I must say that to you. And you're very you're articulate with it, but it's coming from a good space. So you're not a salesperson.
Oh,
You're not just selling. I oftentimes tell folks this, my grandmother once said I have the gift of discernment. It didn't work for one relationship, but that's a different story. But I didn't do a good due diligence. But how do folks now receive that which you are offering to them?
I believe they didn't know. I believe it's not common knowledge. It's not.
So they are receptive to it and they act on
very,
those.
very much receptive to it. And you'll be surprised to the different levels of individuals I'm speaking about. It would think it's one.
No. Some of the most intelligent, wealthiest folks I know, and I'm seeing one right now that was a client of mine, and you would think, but no, if you can't think it, you can't act on it,
Yeah.
If you don't think it, or if you believe that all is well, right? And so sometimes something happens from the outside, or probably even from the inside, that jolts you to say, okay, yeah, we were successful before without this, but we cannot continue to be successful without this. And they can't. It's too, people talk about this VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, but it's much more than, it's like VUCA on steroids. I'm involved in certain things that it is actually scary, right? So I live in a world where it's not about predicting outcomes, but it's trying to identify what can go wrong based on two things: what has gone wrong, and how intelligent, how risk intelligent are the people today who's making decisions? Because the greatest risk to your home, your organization, are the decision makers, the people.
Yes.
That is the greatest risk. Even you.
Yes.
Yeah. And if they aren't thinking, doing what we call horizon scanning and future, doing the things that you are doing, then we're in a pretty dangerous space, Mrs. Haynes. And that's my fear, especially for Trinidad and Tobago. It's happening globally, but especially in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's incumbent. So when you mentioned doing something on a YouTube channel, and that's brilliant. But again, don't do textbook. Share your skill sets and some of the battles you have gone through in the business
most
space.
definitely. However, let me take it back a little further. How my business came into play was I was studying business, and while I was in school, I didn't have any money. So I needed to find some kind of way, because I had a young child, and persons used to find my hair and aesthetics was looking nice. So they would ask me to do it, and I didn't want to. I was just trying to do makeup to persons because, well, I like to paint. And since my father couldn't stand to hear that his child wants to be a starving artist, I said, well, okay, maybe I'll just paint on her face and make money with it. And, it's not every day someone wanted their face done, but it was every day someone wanted their hair done. So that was my first rule on demand and supply. And I had to be adjust to suit because I wanted the money. And everything that I learned while doing my business degree, I implemented it in my little hustle at home, and it grew by mistake. It was not.
You tweak certain things.
Yes.
You added to that which you learned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's how you become.
I got results.
Yeah.
And even though the intention was never to stay in that industry, I never wanted to be a beautician. I never wanted to do hair. I started opening salon after salon, after spa, and it was like, what is this? This is not what makes me happy, but the money is making because I implemented what I learned. So for me, I would say the best way to combat risk on a general scale in Trinidad is to promote specialization.
Okay. Define what do you say? When you mean specialization, what do you mean?
All right. You can be a pie maker. It can be pies. right? You're just making pies on the side of the road. No problem. No problem. That's good. But what if you invest in yourself by learning not just the craft of making pies, but the best way to package it, the best way to price it, the best way to market it? What about learning how to engage with business owners to now put your pies on the shelf? What about now building a team? What about really learning what you do to the best of how it can be? And I believe now, the more education you have is the less risk. So even if the risk is this high, at least now, yes, it still have risk, and it can still be lost. But because you know to a T, your risk will now start decreasing.
Yeah, because now you could identify controls to mitigate some of those risks. Yeah. That's risk management 101. That's basically it. Yes. And so when folks, it's kind of ironic we're having this conversation. So let me share with the folks who will be listening to this. Cherisse and I have a mutual friend and colleague, and she's of similar faith thinking. Yes. And she is in the space that you operated before in the salon business and stuff. Yeah. And she was also on this podcast. And so Cherisse had a conversation with her at some point in time, and she suggested Cherisse that Cherisse and I should have a conversation. Cherisse took religion out of her thinking and never reached out to me. So
no, I'm waiting on God.
But no, so yeah, I'm going there at that point in time. And so and I never knew about this until I reached out to Cherisse to have this conversation. And I spoke of that discernment kind of thing. And it's ironic then, and it's ironic now based on the topics we're having and the conversation. Because you're saying much of what I articulate, but in a very different way. Yeah. It's like speaking, it's like I am
on terms.
Yeah, I'm speaking, I am articulating a sentence in one language, you're articulating the same sentence in another language, but the construct of the sentence is the same. Kind of interesting. And that doesn't happen by happenstance. Those two things that I'm just speaking about. And that's my belief there. So, all right, let's wow.
I believe that's why I sell. I believe that's why I sell as much as I sell, because people don't understand. And when you sit before someone who's so knowledgeable, they're so knowledgeable that that's what they know, and that's what they communicate. Not realizing who they're speaking with. You now have to, I don't want to say calm down. You now have to adapt, and just know how to transfer the knowledge. Don't try to impress. Don't try to, but that's really how I believe.
Or upstage. Yeah.
That is how I believe it is. So when people understand, you do better when you know better.
Yeah.
So when you educate them, they make the personal choice now to create change because they want a different result. But when you don't know what to do,
if you can't
you do it because they heard it was good. Right? You do it because it was good. And then as soon as a little hardship come, the first bill you want to let go of is the insurance bill.
Yeah.
Because it's a bill. But when you understand it's not a bill, it's a priority.
Yeah. Well, it's like an investment in you and your future as well.
And it's a protection for your assets. You can't want to invest into something but not protect it, because then you're leaving yourself exposed.
Okay.
You have to protect what you believe in and what you want to grow.
Are you so you're working for a particular agency? You're not like an independent
No, I'm definitely with Guardian Life of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
My aspirations personally, I would like to so Dominion is the name of the vision and the brand and the business name that I have for my organization. But right now I choose to use Cherisse Haynes for personal branding because I want persons to get to know me on a personal level. And when that time comes, I will implement the brand of the company.
Yeah.
Dominion is supposed to be a group of individuals who have versed in finance in different ways. So because I am licensed, with central bank, we have regulations, we have things that we
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
abide
yeah,
by,
yeah.
that I have to abide by because I
Yeah.
am the insurance agent. However, if I work in conjunction with someone who has different skill sets, who can definitely put money in your pockets, I want to work with you. So even if
Right.
it means education, even if it means courses, even if it means even psychological, because again, we want to do so good, but yet still, what is your mental health? What is your
What is
psyche?
your mindset?
Yeah.
What is your
What's
mindset?
your habits,
So
your
yeah.
lifestyle,
So
everything.
I said to you, I don't have it close by, but there's a book called Anthrovision,
Okay.
and it's written by a finance / journalist / anthropologist. One of the areas I spend a lot of time in is around the psychology of risks. So if it is that the greatest risk to any organization is its people, the decision makers, all right? How could you not want to identify the risks associated with persons or human? So we talk about human capital risks, yeah?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about risk culture, we talk about the attitudes and behavior. Machines don't have attitudes and behaviors. Processes don't have that. It's the human part of the organization where the greatest risks lie. So a lot of my time is focused around that human capital risk side.
Right.
So that involves biases and heuristics. What is your tolerance for risks? What makes you think a certain way? And the more time I spend doing that, the more worried I become, especially for the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago. So when folks ask me publicly, how long would it take? I usually say 2 generations before we get the type of decision makers to treat with where the world is today and where it will be a couple of years from now.
And I say it can be less than that if the person engulfs themselves in the word of God.
Most definitely. That is part of it. But it can't just be so let me share this with you. It can't just be about the word of God of faith, because if you have, that's religion meeting what your prior experiences and education is. You are different. You have that religion and that faith, but you are educated in the now.
Because I seek the knowledge. No,
well, you have to do that, but most folks won't do that because they think they are as good as it gets. I have 3 degrees. Listen, I'm not telling you something I've not lived or experienced.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I have lived this with most, even up here, and it happens in most countries as well, because they have lived. So risk management needs to be a lived experience, and that's my bias because it's like a life skill now. Right? So think business continuity, think disaster preparedness. So it's not just about, I have a big issue with the ODPM and some of these other folks. It's not just about preparing. Well, let's not go down that road because I love to evangelize and we'll go too far. We'll talk about that the next time.
What I want to interject and tell you is, you see, it may seem fickle to say the word of God, but you see the main teaching, the main command of the Bible is to lose yourself in the word and let it renew your mind. And once your mind starts being renewed and you start being in obedience to what the word of God is saying, it's going to tell you to be humble, it's going to tell you to seek knowledge, it's going to tell you to embrace wisdom, it's going to literally give you the straight speaking instructions on what to do to please God. But when you do it, you actually become an individual who can now operate differently in business and decision making and all these things as well. I know it might be kind of crazy to understand.
No, but there are exceptions to that, because I know folks who are, I will call
people don't have the ability to really break down the literature and understand.
Well, let's pray for more of that. That our leaders are guided, but there's much work to be done.
The ultimate goal is to end up in Parliament, but
good, because
yeah,
that's where
it's a strong desire. I believe I can implement change. I believe like I genuinely can implement change, but again, one day at a time.
One day at a time.
I trust his part. We'll see.
If it is, so it is written, so shall it be done.
Yes.
Yes. So, Cherisse Haynes, Mrs., as I was corrected. I have to sincerely thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I mean, we could go on for another hour or so. This has been most interesting, most instructive. Yeah.
What resonated with me is people, the disconnect between managing business and managing risk, and it's one of the same.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that you'll underscore that for the listeners.
Yeah. But that's good. So, Cherisse Haynes, what parting words you have for us and for those who will be listening to this? From both from the faith-based Cherisse and the financial advisor Cherisse.
I was just going to answer as Cherisse, you know. Just regular Cherisse. No, yeah, my head all over the place.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I would say faith, from faith Cherisse.
Right.
I would say more than ever right now, because of the world today, it is of dire importance to build a relationship with God. I don't promote religion at all. I promote relationship with God. We need to align ourselves more. We need to hear from him more, because that's the only way we can be navigated through the madness in the world right now today. So that's what I would say. If you have not been doing it, start cultivating it. If you have not been spending alone time with God, start doing it more. Do what you need to do. Everything else will follow. You're never wasting time when you're spending time with God. That's what I would say from faith, Cherisse. Finance, Cherisse, what would I say? My number.
But share your number, share your contact details.
You know, yes, for real, finance based, because you see, I can't give you a one-liner for finance.
Right.
I would say for finance, my content each morning is dedicated to that. Finance and faith in one, sometimes finance alone, sometimes faith alone. I would say to follow me, because the messages that I put out there, I know it is messages directly from God.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do not want to post what I post. And I quarrel for a while and say, well, why are you making me post this? Why? Oh gosh. And I just have to be obedient, because I feel as though I'm in the wilderness if I don't obey. So I put it out there.
Okay. Okay.
So for finance, I would say to you guys, my name is Cherisse Haynes. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, Cherisse Haynes. That's my handle.
Yeah.
And my phone number, I don't have a problem with giving up my phone number.
No, that one you can leave. Let them connect with you. But I could attest to the fact, because the way what intrigued me, or what grabbed my interest, is how you integrated the faith, Cherisse, with the financial suggestions from Cherisse in your postings. Yeah.
Well, I get it from the Bible, you know.
You what?
I get it from the Bible straight.
Well, okay, because you do quote scriptures.
Yeah,
but
and what I get from it is what I explain.
Right, but it's always aligned with the topic that for the most part, that you want to speak to from the finance insurance side. So and so hence the title of this thing, you know, integrating finance with faith, with actually it had religion, but I was guided appropriately, faith with finance and risk. So
finance is a part of life, and if it is the Bible, it's called the book of life. It is going to tell you about finances.
Yeah,
it's going to tell you about everything about life. It's going to tell you about relationships, about everything. I just pinpoint finances, and the book of life tells you a lot about money. I don't think people know. So this is my platform to showcase that. The richest man in Babylon. So King Solomon was one of the richest men ever lived. What were some of his principles that he implemented to become so wealthy? It's in the book of Proverbs.
right.
You know, so it's not me. I just read the word and interpret it. That's all.
Well, you do a good job of that. So congratulations. And that's why this is my final question. How is this is kind of like personalizing the relationship here. Your significant other, your husband, how does he treat with these conversations and the information you're putting out there and the time you need to spend on both sides? Is that a good thing?
That's two totally different questions. Because the first part, he is all for it. He loves it. He loves his woman of God. He's a man of God. He's totally
Brilliant.
mesmerized by my transformation. He loves how I love the word. I love literature and the whole. He knows that's my thing.
Okay,
And he
great.
will never hamper that because he understands that he himself could be penalized from God. So he's not going to stop
Yeah, you
that.
know what? As
He
you,
reminds me, you have
as-
your work to do.
as you said that, my mom used to tell me, I remember I was at my first job on Wall Street, and I called her. I said, Mom, there's this, I think it was a VP giving. She said, Ken, read Psalm 1. That's all. So she had either a proverb or a psalm for any occasion,
Yes.
good or bad.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that. Well, you reminded me by that. Okay. One of the positives out of these conversations that some of the folks who are part, who I would have spoken with on the podcast, not some actually, I think there's only one or two, who we have conversations with about bringing into our space. Yeah. And to expand our offerings as an academy, so we have the Caribbean Risk Management Academy, and there's the Trinidad and Tobago Risk Management Institute. Yeah. So we are, especially if I can speak for myself, I'm always looking for something different because I am not all things to everyone. So thank you again, Mrs. Cherisse Haynes. Go forth and multiply the information, and we will we'll talk again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much
All right.
for the opportunity.